Tonight, instead of rushing anywhere, instead of checking clocks or glowing screens, you are invited to step quietly backward into time, into an America just learning how to be modern, just beginning to glow with electricity, yet still wrapped tightly in candlelight, coal smoke, and the slow-breathing rhythm of winter, a place where Christmas did not shout for attention but waited patiently to be felt. As you imagine yourself standing on a snow-packed street at the turn of the 20th century, your breath curls visibly in the cold air and lingers for a moment before dissolving. The sound of distant horseshoes echoes softly against frozen stone, and somewhere far down the avenue, a streetcar rattles along iron rails, sparks briefly flashing beneath its wheels like tiny fireflies trapped in metal. This is not a world of bright neon or endless noise, but one of shadows and halos, where gas lamps hiss gently and cast warm orange circles onto the snow, where every window glows differently, and where the night seems deeper, quieter, and heavier than anything you have known. So before you settle fully into this slow winter walk, take a moment to get comfortable, lower the lights around you, and allow your body to relax, because nothing here moves quickly, and nothing asks anything of you. Christmas is coming, but it arrives differently here, unfolding not in sudden bursts of color and sound, but gradually through preparation, repetition, and small acts of care that stretch across weeks rather than hours. You begin walking, your boots crunching softly through packed snow past brick buildings that rise like dark cliffs on either side of the street, their windows glowing faintly with lamplight that flickers rather than shines. And as you move forward, the city around you feels both familiar and strangely fragile, balanced between old habits and new inventions. The year is somewhere around 1900, a moment when American cities like New York, Chicago, Boston, and Philadelphia are swelling rapidly with new arrivals, millions of people carrying accents, traditions, and winter memories from other lands. And you can hear it all around you now, in the overlapping languages drifting from open doorways, in the different rhythms of footsteps, and in the way December hope sounds slightly different on every block. A horse-drawn carriage passes nearby, the animal's breath steaming heavily as frost clings to their manes, the driver hunched into his coat with the posture of someone who has been working since before daylight, and he glances at you briefly, with the kind of look that suggests no one should linger too long in this cold. Yet here you remain, drawn onward by the strange calm that settles over the city as evening deepens. Not every street has electricity yet, and historians still debate how common it truly was at this moment, but you can feel the transition in the air, the quiet tension between candlelight and current, between safety and risk, because every flame promises warmth and danger in equal measure, and the winter wind seems to test every spark it encounters. You pass a newsboy standing beneath a gas lamp, his hands red and cracked from the cold, as he calls out headlines in a voice already roughened by smoke and weather, shaking each paper sharply to show its freshness. And when you pause long enough to buy one, his grin widens with a speed that tells you how rarely kindness interrupts his night. The paper smells faintly of ink and damp air, and you imagine that inside are stories meant to stir sentiment, exaggerated Christmas poems, and hopeful editorials that people will read by lamplight before folding them away, because even then, the holiday was already being shaped by storytelling as much as by tradition. As you continue walking, your senses sharpen in the cold, noticing the scratch of wool against your neck, the metallic scent of streetcar rails, the distant hum of overhead wires, and the faint sweetness drifting from a bakery that refuses to close early despite the weather, its warmth leaking into the street like a promise. Behind the glowing windows you pass, families are already at work, scrubbing floors, peeling vegetables, untangling boxes of decorations saved from previous winters, and arguing quietly over what can be afforded this year, their lives stacked above you like rooms in a tall dollhouse. You can never fully see but can somehow feel. Not everyone you pass is filled with cheer, and that becomes clear as you cross into tighter streets where tenement buildings crowd close together, laundry lines stiff with ice sway overhead, and preparation for Christmas takes on a different weight. shaped more by resilience than abundance. Yet even here, a street singer hums a familiar carol beneath a lamp, her voice steady despite the cold softening the street, just enough to make people slow their steps. You pause, letting the song settle into you, feeling the night grow heavier and sleepier, snowflakes drifting down now in a slow, hypnotic pattern, collecting on railings, shoulders and hat brims, until the city itself seems half awake, half dreaming, and you realize that this is how Christmas in 1900 truly begins, not with celebration but with a collective exhale as the world prepares to rest. And as your path continues forward, drawn toward the warm glow of a small general store still open against the cold, the story gently follows with you, ready to show what waits just inside those fogged windows. When you push open the door of the general store, a small bell sighs out a weary chime, the sound fading gently into the warmth inside. The cold stays outside where it belongs, and the air that greets you feels thick and kind, heavy with the smell of wood smoke and kerosene. In the corner, a pot-bellied stove hums quietly, ticking every now and then as it settles, like a tired heart remembering its rhythm. The light here is golden and low, spilling softly from oil lamps that blur every shadow into comfort. The air smells of flour dust and oranges, of paper and peppermint, and somewhere underneath all that, a faint sweetness, the scent of something once baked and long since cooled. Shelves rise high along the walls, filled with tins, folded cloth, jars of buttons, spools of thread, and brown paper parcels neatly tied with twine. Nothing here shines too brightly. Every object looks humble, sturdy, and made to last. Behind the counter stands a young clerk with rolled sleeves and patient eyes. He nods to you in quiet greeting, the kind of nod that carries gratitude simply because someone came in. You wander slowly through the aisles, brushing your fingers along the worn wooden edges. Each object feels heavier than what you know today, as if everything was built to matter, to be mended, not replaced. Near the counter, a small pyramid of oranges glows like little suns in the lamplight, and you think of how rare they once were, how a single piece of fruit could make a child's eyes light up, as if it were treasure. Next to them, a wooden crate holds simple toys, painted horses chipped by time, spinning tops that hum when set in motion, and dolls whose painted faces seem to watch you gently from the shelves. On a high shelf, a tin box catches your eye. Inside, the clerk explains, is a mechanical frog that hops when you wind it, a small, silly marvel from another world. He smiles faintly as he says it breaks within days, but for those few days it brings real laughter, and somehow that makes it worth every penny. A woman enters with a woven basket on her arm. She moves with quiet purpose, gathering flour, sugar, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Her breath leaves small ghosts in the cool air as she hurries, and for a moment you can almost smell the pies and bread she's already dreaming of baking tomorrow. She nods politely as she passes and slips back into the night, her basket swinging gently. You glance at a faded sign by the counter advertising the newest mail-order catalogues, Sears and Montgomery Ward, thick books that families read together by lamplight, circling wishes they may never buy but love imagining all the same. The clerk says softly that some believe these catalogues bring the world closer, while others fear they will take the heart out of small stores like his. You can tell which side he stands on just by the way he looks around his shop. A little boy tugs at your coat, too shy to speak, and points at a tall jar filled with striped candies. You lift it down for him, and the look on his face is worth more than the sweet itself. His mother scolds gently but smiles as she pays, and the boy unwraps the candy before the door has even closed, the smell of wintergreen following him into the snow. By the doorway sits a crate of fragile ornaments, thin glass globes flecked with paint, each one slightly lopsided, the kind of decoration bought one or two at a time, slowly building a family's Christmas year by year. The clerk tells you some prefer paper chains instead, made by children with flour paste and coloured scraps under the kitchen lamp, laughter echoing against the dark windows. Before you leave, he slips a small caramel into your palm, a quiet gesture, unnecessary yet deeply human. The bell above the door gives a tired little ring as you step back outside and the cold meets you again with its honest bite. Snow drifts down more thickly now, the street hushed and still. Ahead, the light fades toward the woods at the edge of town, where families move like lanterns through the dark, searching for their Christmas trees. You follow their footprints into the whiteness, the story walking beside you, slow and steady, as the night deepens around your steps. The road narrows as you leave the last row of lamps behind and the air grows clearer, colder, purer. The sound of the town fades until all that remains is the muffled crunch of snow beneath your boots and the occasional sigh of wind moving through bare branches. Ahead, faint lanterns swing in the darkness, each one held by a family wandering through the trees in search of the perfect Christmas pine. It is a quiet ritual, old, familiar, patient. Children walk ahead, their laughter rising and falling, like music against the deep hush of the forest. Parents call softly after them, voices carrying warmth through the cold. The moon hangs low, its light caught in the fine lace of snow-laden branches, and every few steps you feel the stillness deepen, as though the world itself is holding its breath. The scent of pine grows stronger with every turn. Resin, bark, cold sap. It fills your lungs in a way that feels both sharp and soothing. When you brush your hand along a branch, snow drifts off in a powdery shimmer, catching the moonlight before it melts into the darkness. Somewhere far ahead, an axe bites softly into wood, a steady rhythm echoing through the night, followed by a child's cheer when the tree finally leans and falls. Historians tell us that even at the turn of the century, many families still came out like this to find their trees themselves, rather than buying them from city lots. It was less about convenience and more about a sense of belonging to the season, to the land, to one another. In places like this, Christmas did not begin in the parlour, but here, in the hush between snowflakes and breath. A little girl points at a crooked fir, small and uneven, its branches drooping under clumps of snow. Her father studies it with a carpenter's eye and shakes his head gently. The mother tilts her head, half agreeing, half persuaded by the charm of the thing. The girl stamps her boot, the tiniest rebellion, and the family's laughter drifts upward, caught and softened by the trees. A moment later, you hear the low scrape of the saw, and you realize they've chosen the crooked one after all. A few yards away, a man steadies a lantern on the snow while his two sons drag a modest pine across the clearing. Their cheeks are flushed pink, their breath steaming like smoke from miniature chimneys, and though the tree is far from perfect, too sparse on one side, too dense on the other, it seems exactly right to them. The father nods in approval, and the boys beam as if they've earned a trophy. In another patch of forest, a family is still debating. The mother gestures at one tree, the father at another, both speaking in the low murmurs of love disguised as argument. The children wait patiently, swaying from foot to foot, too cold to care which one wins. It feels timeless, this quiet tug-of-war between practicality and beauty, a small echo of what every generation must decide, what to keep, what to cherish, what to let go. As you move deeper into the forest, the snow begins to fall again, thicker now, softening the world into shades of silver and white. Lantern light scatters through it like tiny golden stars, and the air grows so still that even your breathing sounds too loud. The forest seems alive, whispering in a language older than memory. The rustle of branches, the faint creak of snow, the steady pulse of life beneath the frost. You stop for a moment and close your eyes. The cold touches your cheeks like fingertips. Gentle but insistent, you imagine all the families around you, their muffled voices weaving through the dark like threads of warmth. You realize this is how Christmas begins in 1900. Not with music or lights, but with footsteps in the snow, with the careful choosing of a tree, with the simple act of being together beneath the endless quiet sky. Slowly, one by one, the families turn back toward the town, dragging their trees across the snow, leaving behind long trails that gleam faintly in the moonlight. Lanterns sway like sleepy fireflies in the distance. The forest exhales, settling once more into stillness. You linger a little longer, watching your breath mingle with the falling snow until it disappears completely. Then you follow, your steps soft and sure, back toward the waiting glow of the town, where the next chapter of Christmas warmth is beginning to unfold. When you return from the woods, the world seems smaller, warmer. The streets glow softly through a veil of snow, and through the windows of small houses you see silhouettes moving slowly, arranging chairs, lifting boxes, shaking off the cold. You follow the golden shimmer spilling from one doorway and step inside a parlor that feels almost alive with anticipation. The air here is heavy with warmth, the kind that sinks into your clothes and stays. Curtains are drawn against the night, keeping the cold at a respectful distance. A single oil lamp burns on a table, its flame steady and calm, spreading a honey-colored glow across every surface. The family you followed from the woods is gathered here, and you sense that they, like you, are ready to turn their small pine into something radiant. The father leans the tree carefully into the corner, adjusting its wooden stand, a simple cross brace tied with twine and wrapped in cloth. It wobbles once, then settles with a sigh, as though the forest itself has accepted its new home. The mother smooths her apron and opens a small box from the shelf, filled with ornaments collected slowly over years. They are not perfect. Some are faded, some dented, one or two chipped. But each one carries a memory, a year, a story, a pair of hands. She unwraps the first ornament, a fragile glass bauble blown by her own mother long ago before the voyage to America. The glass catches the lamplight and glows faintly, almost breathing. She holds it for a long moment before hanging it near the top, whispering something to herself that sounds like a thank you. At the table, the daughter is cutting colored paper into long strips, gluing the ends into links with a paste of flour and water. Her brother holds up the growing chain proudly, his eyes wide with that peculiar kind of triumph only children know. Their laughter spreads softly through the room, and the mother looks over her shoulder with a small smile that holds both pride and tenderness. The father steps back from the tree to survey it. It leans a little to the left, but he doesn't mind. Perfection isn't part of the ritual here. He begins clipping small metal candle holders onto the branches, each one cradling a thin wax taper. They won't be lit until Christmas Eve, but the placing of them feels ceremonial, careful, a balance between beauty and danger. For a moment the room falls quiet, the kind of silence that means something. Beside the window, a small basket sits open with walnuts and ribbons. The grandmother, seated nearby, begins threading cranberries and popcorn on a long string. Her hands move slowly, rhythmically, each motion practiced and precise. The thread hums softly through the berries. The kernels pop faintly as they slide along. She hums too, a tune without words, something ancient, something that sounds like home. The scent of the room has changed now. Pine sap, lamplight oil, the faint sweetness of molasses cookies cooling somewhere in the kitchen. Every few minutes, one of the children sneaks off and returns with a new smell clinging to their hands, sugar, spice, or smoke. The mother doesn't scold, she just smiles knowingly. It's Christmas work, and no one escapes it. The daughter drapes the paper chain carefully around the tree, stepping back, adjusting, stepping forward again. It droops a little on one side, but she laughs and leaves it that way. The father adds a small glass bird. The mother ties a ribbon to the branch that bends slightly under its weight. The grandmother passes the finished popcorn garland to the children, who hang it like a crown. The tree begins to glow, not with light, but with effort, with warmth, with love that doesn't need words. The room feels full now. The clock ticks softly on the mantel, and the fire in the small stove pops like punctuation in a gentle story. Someone brings in a plate of cookies, and someone else pours a cup of cider, and no one says much of anything because they don't have to. They're simply here, inside the warmth, with the snow pressing lightly against the windows and the quiet rhythm of Christmas breathing all around them. Outside, the wind moves along the eaves, brushing against the roof like a hand smoothing a blanket. The night is deep and hushed. The lamp flickers once, then steadies again, and as the family steps back to look at the finished tree, crooked, glowing, and completely perfect, you feel a stillness that settles deeper than silence. It is not celebration yet. It is something gentler, the quiet just before it, the moment when everyone exhales and the house at last begins to dream. When you leave the parlor, the world changes again. The air grows heavier, scented, and alive. It wraps around you before you even cross the threshold. The warmth of a working stove, the sweetness of spice, the slow heartbeat of a room that has been busy since morning. Inside, the light is softer than in the parlor, filtered through steam and flour dust. The stove glows with a deep, steady heat, its iron doors clicking as it breathes. Pans hum gently, a pot whispers, and in the center of it all stands the mother, her sleeves rolled past her elbows, her hands moving in a rhythm that belongs to her alone. Beside her, her eldest daughter kneads dough on a wide wooden table, her cheeks flushed, her hair pinned loosely out of her face. Neither of them speaks much. They don't need to. The language of this kitchen is sound and scent. The soft thump of palms against dough, the scrape of a spoon, the quiet rustle of linen as a loaf rises under a clean cloth. The mother sprinkles flour in a slow snowfall across the table. The daughter folds and presses, her movements patient and sure. The dough stretches beneath her hands like something alive. The air smells of cinnamon, clove, and nutmeg, the holy trinity of winter comfort. On the stove, a pot of apples stews with sugar and spice, their skins softening into golden slivers that will soon fill a pie. Another pot simmers with onions and herbs, the kind of scent that clings to memory long after it fades from the air. The grandmother hums from her chair near the fire, stringing cranberries with the same patient rhythm as before. The sound of her thread sliding through the berries blends perfectly with the slow creak of her rocker. The boys sit at a small side table, peeling potatoes and whispering to each other. Every now and then one flicks a bit of peel at the other, earning a quick glance from their mother, not scolding, just a look that says she sees everything. They grin and keep working. The pile of peeled potatoes grows higher, steam rising faintly from the bucket of water where they fall. On a shelf by the window sits a jar of dark, spiced mince, preserved weeks ago in anticipation of this day. The daughter lifts it carefully and smiles as she shows you the label, the handwriting looping across it like a secret. It's rich with fruit and meat and brandy, a mixture strange to modern taste but cherished for its warmth and longevity. The scent alone makes the air feel thicker, sweeter. Everywhere you look, the room holds proof of quiet work. Jars line neatly on the shelves, their contents glowing like captured seasons, peaches sealed in summer, pickles in green glass, dried herbs tied in bundles above the stove. Every jar is a memory of another month, kept alive for the coldest days. The grandmother looks up and smiles faintly at you. As she threads another berry, she gestures toward a small bowl beside her, candied ginger dusted with sugar. When you take a piece, the taste surprises you. Sharp, warm, sweet, alive. It wakes the senses without breaking the calm. She chuckles softly at your expression, her eyes bright with amusement. The daughter glances toward the clock, and her mother notices, reassuring her that the dough has plenty of time to rise. "Nothing good hurries," she says quietly, and goes back to her stirring. You realize she's right. Everything in this room moves at the speed of care. On the far side of the stove, a small pot of cider warms with cloves and orange peel. The steam that rises from it smells like comfort itself. The mother ladles a little into a tin cup and offers it to you. It burns gently on your tongue, sweet and spiced, curling heat through your chest until the cold of the outside world feels like a half-forgotten dream. Soon the daughter begins shaping cookies with small tin cutters, stars, hearts, trees, bells. She brushes each one with a thin glaze of sugar and butter before sliding them onto a tray. The scent of baking begins to bloom, filling every corner of the kitchen, mingling with the hum of the stove and the soft rustle of fabric. The boys finish their work and sit cross-legged near the fire, watching the flames as they wait for permission to taste. Their eyelids droop, but their faces glow with the reflection of the stove. The grandmother hums a slower tune now, and the creak of her rocker becomes part of the rhythm of the room, a lullaby older than words. The mother and daughter work quietly beside each other, moving like two halves of the same thought. The daughter rolls out a crust. The mother checks the roast. Flour drifts through the air like soft snow, landing on the stove, the floor, their hair. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is rushed. The room feels suspended in time, glowing from the inside out. When the pies finally slide into the oven, the mother leans against the table and sighs, not from exhaustion but from fullness, the kind that comes from seeing everything as it should be. She brushes a bit of flour from her daughter's cheek and smiles. The girl laughs softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The fire pops gently in the stove. The cider bubbles one last time. Outside, snow is still falling, faintly visible through the frosted window. You can't tell how long you've been standing there, only that the world beyond the glass feels slower, quieter, smaller. Inside, everything glows: the people, the food, the warmth, the work. And as the night folds itself around this kitchen, you realize that what you're witnessing isn't just cooking, it's love in motion. The kind that doesn't speak loudly but lasts steady as the flame behind the stove door. Later that evening, when the kitchen has settled into silence and the smell of baking has faded to a sweet echo, the family gathers once more in the parlor. The stove hums faintly in the corner, spreading its heat through the room like a steady heartbeat. Outside, the snow has deepened, and the wind has grown tired. Everything beyond the window is soft and white and far away. The father sits in his chair with the great Sears Roebuck catalogue open across his knees. It is thick and heavy, its pages smelling faintly of ink and dust, edges curled from use. The children crowd around him, their eyes wide with that endless curiosity only winter can summon. They lean close as he turns the pages, and the lamplight slides across the glossy paper, catching pictures of things they've never seen: phonographs, bicycles, pocket watches, lace curtains, and stoves grander than their own. Every now and then the father pauses to describe something aloud: a mechanical sewing machine that promises to save hours of labor, a toy train set that runs on clockwork, a coat trimmed in real fur. His voice is calm and low, the words half for himself and half for the children. The mother smiles faintly from her chair by the window, sewing in her lap, the thread gleaming silver in the lamplight. The daughter rests her chin on her hands, dreaming over a page of dolls in elegant dresses. The sun lingers on the pictures of tools, hammers, planes, braces, things that make, not decorate. The grandmother watches them all from the rocker, the steady creak of wood marking time as the pages turn. They know they cannot have most of what they see, but that hardly matters. The magic of the catalogue isn't in possession, it's in possibility. It's the quiet joy of looking together, of pointing and imagining, of building small shared dreams on paper while the storm whispers outside. The father marks a page with his finger, a small kerosene lamp with a glass chimney shaped like a tulip. "We might need a new one," he murmurs, mostly to himself. The mother glances up, then nods. "Maybe," she says softly, "if the roof holds another winter." He smiles at that, folding the corner of the page as if the gesture itself were a kind of hope. The children turn to another page filled with toys: miniature stoves, tin soldiers, puzzles, and something called a magic lantern, which promises to project glowing pictures onto a wall. They marvel at the illustrations, the way the light of imagination flickers even brighter than the lamplight. The boy whispers that one day he'll have a real lantern of his own, not a toy but a big one for the barn. His father chuckles quietly and ruffles his hair. From her chair, the grandmother begins to hum again, a tune the children don't quite know but recognize by feeling. The melody fills the small room like warm air, wrapping itself around each face, each sound, each breath. The clock ticks in the background, marking the hour, and still they keep turning pages, slower now, as sleep begins to blur their focus. Eventually, the mother closes her sewing and sets it gently aside. "Enough for tonight," she says, but there's no firmness in her voice. The father closes the catalogue carefully, smoothing its cover as if it were something sacred. The children protest faintly, but their eyes are already heavy. The daughter leans against her mother's arm. The son curls closer to the stove. The room quiets again. Only the soft hum of the fire remains, and the gentle whisper of snow brushing against the glass. The father sets the catalogue on the table beside the lamp. It gleams for a moment in the golden light before the flame is turned down low. The last image you see before darkness takes over is the family gathered together, close, warm, and still, their dreams not extravagant, but shared, fragile, and enough. Outside, the snow keeps falling. Inside, the world breathes slowly. The lamp flickers once, then steadies, casting one final glow across the pages of the unopened catalogue, a promise of tomorrow waiting patiently in the quiet heart of winter. Morning comes softly, as though the sky itself is reluctant to disturb the quiet. The first light of day seeps through the frosted window panes, pale and blue at first, then warmer, turning the edges of the curtains to gold. The stove has burned low overnight, but its last coals still glow faintly, red like sleepy embers. The house stirs slowly. A floorboard creaks, a kettle hums faintly. The grandmother coughs once, then smiles, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The mother is already awake, moving quietly through the kitchen, coaxing the fire back to life with practiced hands. Soon the smell of coffee drifts through the house, gentle and reassuring, followed by the faint sweetness of toast and butter warming on a plate. The children are the first to break the stillness. Their feet patter down the hallway, light and uneven, followed by a burst of laughter when they see the tree. It stands waiting in the corner, its branches still full of yesterday's effort. The paper chains, the popcorn garland, the small flickers of glass catching the early light. For a moment they just stand there, staring, as though it has changed overnight into something enchanted. The father joins them with a quiet smile. He lights the first candle on the tree, shielding the flame carefully with his hand until it steadies. Then another, and another, until the branches glow with small trembling points of gold. The whole family watches in silence. Even the children fall still, sensing the fragile beauty of fire and pine breathing together. On the table beneath the window there are a few small parcels wrapped in brown paper and string. No glitter, no ribbons, no noise, just quiet gifts, things chosen with care and patience. The daughter unwraps a hand-sewn apron, the cloth simple but strong, the stitches straight and even. She runs her fingers along the seams as though reading a story written in thread. The son opens a small wooden whistle, carved by his father, the grain polished smooth with love. When he blows softly into it, the note is shy and uncertain, like a bird testing the air. The mother unwraps a pair of knitted mittens, dyed in a soft, uneven red. The yarn came from an old scarf unravelled weeks ago. The wool spun again on cold nights by lamplight. She smiles and presses them to her cheek. The father receives a small book of poems, the corners slightly bent, bought second-hand but chosen because the words inside are beautiful. He turns a page and reads one aloud, a few lines about winter, light and gratitude, and the sound of his voice seems to settle over the room like snowfall. From the kitchen comes the smell of something warm, porridge thickened with cream, a plate of biscuits, a bowl of apples baked the night before. The grandmother waves the children closer, spooning out portions with a kind of ceremony. They eat together, quietly, laughing between bites, their cheeks pink from warmth and wonder. Outside, the world remains white and still. Smoke rises from chimneys up and down the street, curling lazily into the pale sky. Somewhere, a church bell rings. Faint, distant, slow, the sound rolls through the morning, like a blessing. The father crosses to the window and pulls the curtain aside. "Snow's stopped," he murmurs. more to himself than to anyone. The sunlight glints faintly on the roofs, on the frozen trees, on the soft trails where footsteps from last night have already begun to fade. The mother stands beside him, her hand resting on his arm. For a long moment they just look, not out at the cold, but at the peace it brings. The children finish their meal and curl up near the stove, one resting against the other. The grandmother hums her quiet tune again, and the mother begins to wash the breakfast dishes, the sound of water mingling with her humming like another instrument joining in. The father returns to his chair, the small book still open in his hands. The candle flames waver gently as if listening. Nothing grand happens. No one bursts into song. There are no surprises, no excess. Just warmth, stillness, love, and the faint rustle of life continuing in its quiet rhythm. And in that rhythm, in the sigh of the fire, in the clinking of a spoon, in the soft breathing of children, the day feels complete. Outside, sunlight spreads across the snow. Inside, the room glows softly in reply. It is Christmas in 1900. Modest, tender, slow, a day built not on abundance but on presence. And as you stand in that small parlour, surrounded by the calm pulse of family and firelight, you understand something rare and certain, that joy when it is this quiet never fades. The house has settled into its slow rhythm again. The stove hums gently, breathing warmth into the wooden walls. Outside, the snow has quieted to a fine dust falling straight and thin, the kind that barely makes a sound when it lands. Inside, light from the tree candles trembles softly, painting golden halos on the ceiling. The grandmother rocks slowly, her needles clicking in a gentle rhythm, finishing the last rows of a small woolen sock. The children are half awake by the fire, whispering to each other in voices so faint they might be part of the crackling wood. The mother hums under her breath as she folds the breakfast linens, her movements steady, unhurried. The father sits by the window, the book of poems still open on his knee. Every few minutes he glances outside as though expecting someone to pass, though no one does, just the wind and the long stretch of snow-covered street. The sound of distant bells drifts faintly through the air, carried from a nearby church where morning service is beginning. It arrives like an echo rather than a call, soft and far away, a sound that doesn't ask for attention but quietly fills the spaces between moments. The mother lights another candle on the table, not out of necessity but habit, as if to keep the rhythm of the day alive. The flame catches, grows steady and joins the others in their silent conversation of light. The daughter watches it for a while, her chin resting on her hands, her expression thoughtful, as though she's trying to remember a dream. From somewhere deep in the house, the scent of baked apples lingers, sweet, heavy, clinging to the air long after breakfast. The warmth of it blends with the faint tang of smoke from the stove, wrapping everything in a slow, golden calm. Hours seem to stretch without shape here. No one counts them. The children wander between the parlour and kitchen, touching the garlands, whispering stories, tracing shapes on the fogged windows with their fingers. The grandmother drapes her finished sock over the chair to dry. The mother smooths the tablecloth again, though it hardly needs it. The father closes the book at last and sets it aside, his thumb marking the page as if he might return to it later. The sound of snow sliding gently from the roof startles no one. It is part of the day now, the sigh of winter itself. The light through the windows softens, slipping slowly toward evening, though no one seems to notice. The stove breathes steadily, the fire dimming and brightening with the rhythm of the room. Nothing is finished here. The day simply continues, quiet and whole, carrying its warmth forward like a slow heartbeat that refuses to fade. By the time evening returns, the light outside has thinned into silver. The sun, a faint memory behind the clouds. Snow begins again, falling in lazy spirals that catch the glow of the lamps before disappearing into the dark. The streets are empty now, the world hushed as though the entire town has exhaled and settled into contentment. Inside the house, the fire has been fed anew. The orange light trembles across the floorboards, and the scent of pine deepens as the warmth releases the tree's resin. The father adjusts the damper on the stove, his movements slow and practiced, while the mother arranges a plate of bread and cheese on the table. Not a meal exactly, but something to share while the night stretches ahead. The children sit cross-legged near the hearth, building small forts out of wooden blocks, their laughter quiet but constant. Every so often, one of them pauses to listen to the snow tapping softly against the window, the sound so delicate it feels like breathing. The grandmother watches them with half-lidded eyes, her knitting forgotten in her lap, her thoughts far away but content. On the mantel, the candles burn lower now, their wax pooling like tiny golden lakes. The paper chain catches the flickering light, shifting from crimson to copper to amber. The ornaments on the tree gleam faintly, their reflections blurred by the glow of the fire. The father sits again by the window, looking out at the snow-covered street. A single lamplight shines at the corner, its flame bending in the wind, and for a moment he imagines he can see the footsteps they left last night, the faint trace of where they dragged their tree home from the woods. He doesn't say anything, he just watches quietly and lets the silence fill the room. The mother hums an old carol, soft and low, more rhythm than song. The tune threads through the air, winding between the furniture, the children, the fire, until the whole house seems to breathe with it. The grandmother joins her for a verse, their two voices so gentle that the sound seems to come from the walls themselves. In the corner, the daughter is carefully folding the wrapping paper from her apron, smoothing the creases, stacking the string, saving it for next year. She works with the care of someone who understands the worth of small things, her fingers delicate and sure. The son has fallen asleep beside the hearth, his hand still clutching the small wooden whistle. His breathing is deep and even, perfectly matched to the crackling rhythm of the fire. The grandmother rises slowly, tucks a quilt around him, and returns to her chair without a word. Outside, the wind changes direction. Snow drifts against the window pane, the flakes fusing into soft, shifting patterns that catch the candlelight. For a while, everyone simply watches them form and fade, over and over, as if the night itself is dreaming. The mother pours cider into small cups, steam curling upward in gentle ribbons. The father takes one and holds it between his palms, the warmth soaking through his fingers. They drink without talking. They don't need to. Every sound in the room, the fire, the wind, the faint ticking of the clock, feels like conversation enough. Somewhere beyond the town, a train passes. The low whistle carries through the night air, distant but steady, a reminder that the world is still moving even as theirs stays still. It fades quickly, swallowed by the snow, leaving behind only silence, and the quiet certainty that this moment will linger, the way warmth lingers in wood long after the flame has gone out. The grandmother's eyes drift closed. The father leans back in his chair. The mother sets her cup down and looks at the tree, the soft light reflecting in her eyes. The children dream near the fire, and the night, gentle and endless, goes on breathing around them. The hours slip quietly past. The lamps burn lower, their glow now the colour of honey. The air feels thick and slow, filled with the warmth of the stove and the scent of pine that has deepened with the night. The house breathes as if it were alive, expanding slightly with each crack of the fire, settling again as the heat rises through the boards. The grandmother has fallen asleep in her chair, her knitting resting loosely in her lap. The father drapes a shawl over her shoulders before returning to his seat by the window. The world outside has become a blur of white and grey, the storm growing heavier but softer too, the flakes so thick they look almost like drifting ash. The mother moves quietly through the room, blowing out the smaller candles one by one, her shadow gliding across the walls. Each time a flame fades, the darkness grows a little deeper, but not cold. Never cold, just softer, like the fold of a blanket. The tree still glows faintly in the corner, its last few candles trembling in their holders. Their reflections shimmer in the window, as if another tree burns faintly in the snow outside. The children are fast asleep now, curled together beneath a patchwork quilt, their faces pink from the fire. One has dropped his wooden whistle onto the rug, The other still holds a paper star between her fingers. The mother kneels to pick them up gently, placing both on the mantel beside a row of cooling teacups. For a long while, there is only the sound of the fire and the wind. The logs shift, sparks rise and vanish, and the snow presses gently against the windows. Somewhere deep within the house, a clock strikes softly. Once, twice, the chime almost lost in the sigh of the storm. The father stands, stretching slowly, and crosses to the window again. The world beyond is nearly gone. Just a faint shimmer of light where the lamp-post once stood, now half buried in snow. He rests his hand against the cold glass, tracing the thin line where frost has begun to bloom. His reflection wavers beside the shadow of the tree, the flicker of the candles turning his face into something half real, half memory. The mother joins him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. For a while they stand like that, watching the storm together, saying nothing. The room behind them glows faintly, gold fading into grey. The fire crackles softly. A final lullaby for the house. They turn at last toward the sleeping children. The mother smiles. The father nods once, a gesture so small it's almost invisible. He stirs the embers gently, closing the stove door until only a thin red line of light remains. The wind sighs once more against the shutters, then quiets. The grandmother murmurs something in her sleep, a word you can't quite catch, and the sound settles in the air like the last note of a song. The daughter shifts beneath her blanket. The boy exhales, his breath visible for a moment in the cooling air. The mother adjusts the curtain. The father checks the latch. Every motion is slow, careful, and full of quiet intention. Outside, the storm moves on. Inside, the last candle burns low, bending toward its wick before steadying again. Its flame wavers, once bright and fragile, casting one last shimmer across the faces of the family, sleeping, resting, dreaming. And then the moment holds, not ending, not fading, just resting, suspended in the calm breath between night and morning. Morning comes not with light, but with stillness. The storm has passed in the night, leaving behind a hush so complete that even the creak of the floorboards sounds reverent. The first glow of dawn presses faintly through the frost-clouded windows, pale blue at first, then blushing gold as the sun struggles over the horizon. The house is quiet but not asleep. The fire, though dimmed, still breathes faint heat from the stove. The room smells faintly of smoke, wool, and the sweet ghost of yesterday's spices. The grandmother stirs first, blinking slowly, her knitting still tangled around her fingers. She does not rise yet, just sits and listens, letting the silence unfold around her like a familiar hymn. The father wakes next, stretching stiffly from his chair by the window. His breath fogs in the cool air as he looks outside. The world has been remade. Every fence post, every rooftop, every branch glitters beneath a pure white veil. No footprints mar the snow. The lamplight that burned all night has gone out, leaving behind only sunlight diffused through ice and quiet. He stands there for a long while, unmoving, as if afraid to disturb the perfection of it. The fields beyond the town shimmer like glass, and smoke from the chimneys rises straight into a windless sky. The mother wakes soon after. She lights a single lamp, not because it's dark, but to keep the habit of warmth alive. She sets a pot on the stove, the soft clink of enamel breaking the morning stillness. The sound is gentle, rhythmic, like the world taking its first deep breath after dreaming. The children wake to the smell of porridge and the faint sound of a bird tapping somewhere outside. They blink, stretch, and tumble from their blankets, their cheeks flushed and hair tangled. The girl presses her face to the cold window pane, then giggles softly at the sight. The snow piled high against the fence, the branches glittering like crystal lace. The boy races to find his whistle, his bare feet tapping on the cold boards. When he blows it, the sound comes out faint and crooked, and the whole room bursts into sleepy laughter. Even the grandmother smiles, tucking her knitting neatly aside. Breakfast begins slowly. Steam curls from the bowls, carrying the scent of oats and butter, and the faint sweetness of molasses. The family eats in near silence, each one lost in the quiet pleasure of warmth and hunger eased. The mother passes slices of bread still warm from the pan, the butter soft and glistening on the surface. The father pours milk, his hands steady, his eyes bright with contentment. Outside, the sun climbs higher, lighting the snow until it dazzles the eyes. Through the window you can see faint trails appearing now. The first signs of neighbors venturing out, bundled against the cold, their laughter carried in short, bright bursts across the still air. The sound feels like the first music of the day. The father pulls on his coat and opens the door, letting a wave of fresh cold sweep through the house. The air smells impossibly clean, the kind of cold that makes the lungs ache and the soul wake up. He steps onto the porch, brushing snow from the railing, and looks out at the endless white stretching beyond the road. His boots sink deep with the first step, leaving perfect prints behind him. The children watch from the doorway, their breath forming little clouds that drift away like secrets. The mother calls after them to bundle up before following, her voice soft but sure. One by one they step into the day, into the shining, untouched world that feels both brand new and ancient all at once. The snow crunches beneath their boots. The air hums faintly, filled with the sound of distant bells, and somewhere beyond the hill, the faint whistle of a train drifts once again, low, lingering, and peaceful, as if the world itself is stirring from its long night's dream. Inside, the last ember in the stove glows red for a moment longer, then settles into grey. The warmth remains, held in the wood, in the air, and in the memory of a Christmas that has come and gone, not with noise or glitter, but with quiet grace. And as the light spreads across the frozen fields, the story does not end. It simply opens, wide, still, and full of calm, like winter itself, waiting for the next breath, the next day, the next slow miracle to unfold. By mid-morning, the town has begun to stir. The streets, buried in white, glint like ribbons of glass beneath the pale sun. The sound of shovels scraping gently at doorsteps drifts from every direction, steady, unhurried, almost musical. You walk along slowly, your boots sinking into the soft crust, each step releasing a faint sigh of powder. The world smells of wood smoke and fresh bread. Chimneys rise like dark spires against the white sky, their plumes trailing upward in perfect columns. Windows glow with amber light, and behind each one, a different rhythm unfolds. Someone brushing snow from a sill, another carrying in a log, a child pressing her face to the cold pane to watch the day begin. The church bell begins to ring, slow, deep, certain. Each tone rolls across the rooftops, carried by air so clear it seems to stretch for miles. People emerge from their homes wrapped in wool and scarves, their laughter soft and fogged by breath. Families walk together down the hill toward the church, their boots creaking, their pace gentle, as though the world has agreed not to rush today. You pass a baker propping open his door, letting the smell of rising dough escape into the street. He nods to you, eyes half closed against the brightness, and gestures toward a tray of warm rolls cooling on the counter. Inside, a small boy arranges them into neat rows, proud of his task. His hands move carefully, reverently, like someone tending treasure. A woman sweeps the steps of the post office, her broom leaving curved trails through the snow. She pauses now and then to wave to passing neighbors, her cheeks pink, her breath silver. Behind her, the window displays a small painted sign, closed for Christmas morning. Yet she hums as she works, unwilling to let the morning pass without rhythm. You notice how everything moves slower here. Even the horses pulling sleighs down the street seem to match the quiet heartbeat of the town, their breath rising in steady white bursts, their bells chiming softly in time with their hooves. The sleigh runners whisper over the snow like silk being drawn across wood. At the square, the fountain stands frozen, its tears encased in ice that sparkles like glass lace. Children run circles around it, their laughter ringing through the air, pure and wild and bright. A few tumble into the snow and rise again, brushing themselves off with theatrical seriousness, their mittens heavy with ice. Parents watch from the edges, smiling, calling gently for them to come warm their hands. Near the church steps, an older man in a long overcoat stands beside a cart laden with oranges and wrapped parcels. His face glows with a kind of satisfaction that only comes from giving something away. He hands each passerby a small fruit or a package, refusing payment, nodding as they thank him softly. Historians would later write about such quiet gestures, the humble exchanges that carried as much weight as the grand feasts. But here now, it simply feels like part of the morning. Inside the church, the door stands open just enough for the warmth to slip through. You hear the faint hum of voices singing, a single carol repeated softly, the sound blending with the crackle of the stove and the sigh of snow outside. The harmony rises and fades like breathing. A young girl stands at the doorway, one hand resting on the frame. Her boots are dusted with frost, her hair tied back with a ribbon the color of ash. She tilts her head, listening to the song, not entering yet, just letting it wash over her. The light catches her face and glows faintly in her eyes. Around her, the street brightens. The sky clears to a pale silver blue. Snow sparkles on the rooftops. And from every chimney, new smoke curls upward, like the town is exhaling its long night. You stand for a moment, letting the warmth of it, human, steady, unhurried, sink into you. Beyond the square, the sound of sleigh bells drifts again, not urgent, not loud, just enough to remind you that the world keeps moving, softly, toward afternoon. Somewhere, a door closes. Somewhere, another opens. The baker's rolls cool, the children's laughter fades, and the bell rings one final time before quiet returns. The snow glows now, not from the sun, but from the life that fills it, footprints leading in all directions. 1,000 small marks of motion and belonging. The morning, calm and bright, feels endless. And as you keep walking, the story goes on with you, through the square, past the church, into the winding white beyond, where the quiet heart of winter waits, still pulsing with the warmth of Christmas. By late afternoon, the sky softens into rose and grey. The snow that blanketed the world all morning begins to glitter as the light tilts lower, turning every rooftop and window pane into a slow shimmer of gold. Smoke curls gently from chimneys, and the sound of sleigh bells grows more frequent as families make their way back into the heart of town. The streets glow now with the amber of gas lamps. Frost gathers along their iron posts, catching the light like silver threads. You walk slowly, boots leaving fresh tracks on snow packed smooth by the day's footsteps. The town feels changed again. Quieter, yes, but not sleepy. It hums softly beneath the stillness, alive in its waiting. The baker's shop door opens, releasing a wave of heat and the smell of sweet spice. Children crowd the window, their noses pressed against the glass as he arranges small cakes dusted with sugar into the shape of a star. He sees them, laughs, and opens the door wider. The children shy away at first, then step forward as he breaks a few pastries into halves, offering each one a piece. The laughter that follows drifts through the street, like music. In the square, a group of men have cleared a patch of ice and placed lanterns around its edge. A few daring skaters glide across it, their movements clumsy but joyous, hands clasped for balance, faces red from cold and laughter. The lanterns shimmer on the ice, reflecting every motion in soft gold. From nearby doorways, women watch and smile, calling reminders to be careful, though no one truly listens. You hear a fiddle begin to play, hesitant at first, then sure. The sound cuts gently through the evening air, joined soon by a second and a third. The tune is simple, familiar, one that everyone seems to know. Before long, the square fills with soft singing. Voices rise and fall, not in perfect unison, but in harmony born from closeness. The snow begins again, light as breath. It drifts through the lamplight, through the song, through the laughter that ripples from the small crowd gathered near the fountain. A mother twirls her child, A man claps his mittened hands in time with the beat, and for a few moments the whole town seems to sway together. At the edge of the square, someone lights a row of candles in glass jars, setting them along the steps of the church. Others join in, adding their own lights, one by one, until the stairway glows like a ribbon of flame in the snow. The effect is small, imperfect, beautiful. Inside the church, the organ begins to hum. Its deep notes roll outward, meeting the fiddle's tune in the open air. You step closer, drawn by the mingling sounds, by the warmth that seems to spill out through the heavy doors. People begin to file in, still talking softly, brushing snow from their coats, nodding to friends. The pews fill, the murmurs settle, and candles flicker to life along the walls. The air glows honey gold. The minister speaks only briefly, offering a few words of gratitude and peace before stepping aside. Then, from somewhere near the front, a choir begins to sing, low and clear, a sound that floats upward and curls along the vaulted ceiling like smoke. You sit near the back, watching the faces around you illuminated by the shifting light, mothers holding their children close, old men resting their hats on their knees, couples leaning shoulder to shoulder. The music moves through them like warmth moves through wood. Outside, the snow deepens again, swallowing footprints and softening every edge of the world. The glow of the candles spills faintly through the frosted windows, painting gold shapes on the snowdrifts. A horse snorts softly somewhere nearby. The world listens, quiet and patient. When the hymn ends, no one claps. No one speaks. For a long moment, silence fills the space. Heavy, sweet, unbroken, until someone coughs gently, someone else laughs softly, and the spell loosens. People rise, pull on their gloves, and step back into the night, their breath silver in the cold. The square awaits them with its gentle chaos. Laughter, music, snow. Someone lights a bonfire near the fountain, and the flames climb high enough to throw orange light onto the icy statue above. Sparks drift upward, mingling with falling flakes, disappearing into the dusk. The night settles slowly around them, folding the town into its arms. The lamps hum, the snow hisses against rooftops, and the sound of the fiddle continues, softer now, drifting away into the distance. You stand there for a long time, feeling the warmth of the fire on your face, and the cold at your back. Above you the sky is pale and wide, stars faint through the mist. Around you the town breathes gently, alive, content, unhurried. And as the last notes fade, you realize that Christmas here is not a single night at all. It is something quieter, a long, slow light that lingers in the snow, in the air, in every heart still awake beneath this soft December sky. Midnight passes quietly. The music has softened to memory. The laughter faded into the slow rhythm of the wind. The bonfire in the square has sunk into a red, pulsing glow, its embers sighing as snow lands on them and turns to steam. The lanterns along the church steps flicker low, their flames bending toward exhaustion but refusing to die. The streets are empty now, the sleigh tracks half erased by fresh snow. Even the horses sleep, their breath drifting from the stables in thick silver plumes. The last window shutters close one by one, until the whole town looks like a painting, soft, still, untouched by noise or urgency. The air feels different at this hour, thin, sharp, but gentle in its silence. The snow falls almost straight, so fine it looks like smoke against the stars. You walk slowly down the street, your steps muffled, your breath steady. Every sound you make feels sacred, as though it might wake the dream of the world. You pass the bakery, dark now except for the faint orange glow from the banked oven. The scent of bread lingers in the air, mingled with the sweetness of sugar and ash. Across the street, the lamplighter's pole leans against the wall, his night's work finished. The lamp beside it burns faintly, a last sentinel watching over the quiet hours. The church bell strikes once, soft, hesitant, as if unsure whether to disturb the peace it helped create. The sound drifts outward and dissolves into the snow. The town lies beneath a perfect white hush. Every roof is smooth as marble. every window frosted into lace. Faint moonlight filters through a veil of cloud, silvering the world until it looks like glass, fragile, luminous, waiting for dawn. You stop at the edge of the square. The fountain is frozen solid now, the ice glittering faintly under the moon. A single candle still burns near its base, its flame barely alive. You kneel to shield it from the wind, watching how it quivers but holds, small, stubborn, beautiful. For a moment, you imagine it has burned since the first Christmas, passed quietly from one year to the next, from one hand to another. The sound of the river reaches you faintly, ice shifting, water moving beneath. Somewhere far off, a train calls again, its whistle a low hum that blends with the night. It feels less like a machine now and more like the heartbeat of winter itself. You walk on through the sleeping streets. Each house is a story sealed in warmth. Inside them, families dream, children curled beneath patchwork quilts, parents breathing evenly beside quiet stoves, old souls resting in the memory of songs that have just faded. Even the clocks tick softer, their rhythm slowed by the cold. You pause beneath a street lamp where snowflakes tumble lazily in the light. They seem to fall slower here, as if time itself has loosened its grip. Your footprints stretch behind you, the only marks of motion in a town suspended between night and morning. The stars appear now, clear and trembling. They hang above the frozen rooftops, mirrored faintly in the glassy surface of the snow. You tilt your head back and breathe deeply. The air sharp and sweet, the silence infinite. The night feels alive but unhurried, patient as an old prayer. The candle by the fountain flickers one last time and steadies. The wind softens. The world breathes. And somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond the sleeping fields, the first hint of pale light begins to gather, thin as thread, ready to stitch a new morning across the sky. The first light of morning comes so softly, it almost seems imagined. A thin grey shimmer touches the snow, not yet golden, just the faintest lifting of shadow. The frost along the windows begins to bloom in reverse, melting into clear, trembling glass. From somewhere deep in the stillness, a single bird calls, hesitant, uncertain, and then the silence fills again, but lighter now, awake. Smoke rises once more from the chimneys, curling lazily upward in soft ribbons that glow pink in the early light. The roofs glisten with frost, and along the fences the snow has crusted into perfect edges that catch the sunrise like fine glass. The bell tower stands tall and pale against the sky, its metal cross tipped with ice that glows faintly as the sun climbs higher. Inside the houses, stoves are stirred to life again. You can hear the muffled clink of iron, the soft thud of logs dropped onto coals, the sigh of kindling catching flame. Windows fog with heat from within, blurring the world into soft watercolor shapes, smoke, snow, light, breath. The baker opens his shutters first. His apron is dusted with flour, his eyes still heavy with sleep, but the smile comes easily. He places a tray of fresh bread on the sill, and the steam rises into the crisp air, curling like incense. A few early risers pass, nodding to him, their boots crunching on the snow. They exchange no words at first, just small smiles, quiet acknowledgement that the world somehow still turns. At the blacksmith's workshop, the door creaks open. He steps out, rubbing his hands together, the air puffing white around his beard. The hammer hasn't yet begun its day's rhythm, but he tests its weight in his hand anyway, as though to feel the comfort of habit returning. The sound of wheels breaks the silence. Slow, steady, deliberate. A cart rolls down the street, its wooden sides dusted in frost. The driver hums to himself, wrapped in wool, his voice low and calm. Behind him a child peeks out from under a blanket, eyes bright against the cold. By the church steps, the last of the candle jars from the night before still stand half buried in snow, their wicks blackened, their glass frosted white. No one moves to clear them away just yet. They belong to the morning now, quiet proof of what the night had held. The town fills gradually with small, ordinary sounds. A door latch clicking, A broom sweeping, boots stamping snow from their soles. The bell rings again, this time brighter, less solemn. A sound of movement, not reflection. Its tone stretches over the rooftops, mingling with the first laughter of the day. Children emerge, red-cheeked and bundled, dragging wooden sleds through the snow. Their shouts echo off the walls, the sharp, joyful kind that cuts cleanly through cold air. A woman leans from her window, calling after them with a smile, though her words are lost in the brightness of the morning. The sun clears the roofs now, spilling across the town in gold and rose. Icicles shimmer, like small glass harps. Their slow drip marks the true beginning of day. The whole world seems to exhale, the houses, the streets, the snow itself. You walk through it slowly, watching as colour returns to everything. The brown of the wood, the blue of the shadows, the red of a scarf caught in the wind. The people greet one another softly, their voices carrying warmth that no fire could give. There is work to be done, yes, but no one rushes. The rhythm of the day moves at the pace of the light itself. Calm, sure, enduring. The same candle that burned at midnight still sits by the frozen fountain. Its wick is dark now, but when the sunlight touches the glass, it gleams as though lit again. You stop there for a moment, listening to the faint trickle of thawing ice, the first steady heartbeat of the river returning. Above the rooftops, the sky opens wide and clear. The church bell chimes once more, and the sound feels softer this time. Not a call, not a reminder, but a blessing. The town of snow and silence is alive again. And as the morning unfolds, gentle and endless, you feel that quiet certainty return, that some things, like warmth, kindness and light, never truly leave. They only rest, waiting for dawn to wake them once more. By mid-morning the air is full of soft motion again. The square, once silent, hums quietly beneath the pale winter sun. Merchants begin to open their shutters, shaking loose the frost that gathered overnight. The sound is delicate. The creak of wood, the brush of broom bristles, the faint jingle of a doorbell as someone steps inside a shop. The baker's window glows golden from within. Loaves line the sill in neat rows, steam fogging the glass in slow, uneven patches. A few townspeople gather by the door, speaking in low tones, their laughter gentle and unhurried. The smell of bread and coffee blends with the sharp scent of snow, creating a warmth that seems to float through the street. At the general store, a young man stacks crates of apples and jars of preserves along a wooden counter. His gloves are frayed, his breath visible, but his movements are patient, precise. From time to time he looks toward the window to watch the snow still falling, thinner now, softer, turning to silver dust in the light. Children run past, their boots leaving shallow prints on the path. They drag small sleds behind them, their scarves fluttering like flags in the cold wind. The sound of their laughter echoes between the buildings, mixing with the low murmur of conversation and the creak of carts along the main road. Near the church, the bell tower catches the sun and glints. Its bronze surface gleams through the frost, the metal warm where the light strikes it directly. The bell itself hangs still, but its memory lingers in the morning air like a voice just finished speaking. You pass the blacksmith's shop. The door is open now, and the steady rhythm of his hammer rings through the street. Not harsh, but reassuring, like a heartbeat. Sparks fly and fade against the snow just beyond the threshold, each one disappearing before it touches the ground. The air smells faintly of iron, smoke, and pine tar. A woman walks by with a basket of wool, her shawl drawn close against the wind. She greets the blacksmith with a nod, and he raises his hammer in reply without pausing. They don't need words, just recognition, the small comfort of familiarity. At the far edge of town, a horse-drawn sleigh waits beside the post office. The postman stands in the snow, sorting envelopes carefully, each one sealed with a different color of wax. The reins hang loose in his hand. The horse shakes its mane and snorts, the sound sharp in the cold air. The mail will go out when it goes. No one hurries. The market square fills slowly with life. A A few stalls open, selling jars of honey, bundles of herbs, candles dipped in tallow, wool mittens knitted in careful rows. The merchants speak quietly, their faces red from cold but lit with easy smiles. The sound of coins, muted by gloves and snow, mingles with the soft whisper of fabric being folded. Somewhere near the fountain, an old man begins to play a fiddle again. His bow moves slowly, the notes gentle and thin, more like the sound of memory than of music. People pause as they pass, offering a nod, a smile, or a small coin dropped quietly into his hat. The tune is the same as the one played during the celebration the night before, slower now, softer, but still carrying warmth. You stand near the edge of the square, watching the scene unfold, the small exchanges, the rhythm of ordinary kindness. A woman helps an elderly neighbor tie her shawl tighter. A boy offers to carry a bundle of wood. Two strangers share a laugh over a spilled apple that rolls into the snow. Above it all, the sky is clear, the blue so pale it almost seems white. The sunlight moves across the roofs, catching on icicles that drip steadily into small shining pools. The air tastes clean, like melted snow and wood smoke. The town, once buried in silence, now breathes again, slow, steady, peaceful. And though the world beyond these streets will continue to turn, faster and louder, here the day unfolds at its own rhythm, timeless, deliberate, filled with the quiet pulse of life returning. You stay for a while longer, watching the morning stretch and brighten. The sound of the fiddle fades, replaced by laughter, by the soft brush of wind through the trees, by the steady creak of carts heading out toward the open road. And in that calm, you realize that this, not the feast, not the gifts, not even the song, is what remains when the season passes. The gentle rhythm of ordinary souls, kind and steady, finding beauty in the quiet work of another day. By afternoon, the sun has settled into its lazy descent, glowing pale and round behind a veil of frost. The snow no longer blinds, it glimmers instead, each flake a tiny mirror catching the light before it fades. The air feels warmer now, though the wind still carries its edge. Every sound seems softened, as if the day itself is exhaling after a long breath. The streets are quieter than in the morning. The market has thinned, the vendors' voices replaced by the gentle creak of carts returning home. Wooden wheels crackle against the packed snow, horses snorting as they pull the last loads through the square. From doorways comes the scent of supper beginning, onions, bread, and wood smoke blending into something that feels like belonging. Near the fountain, the old fiddler is gone. In his place, a small group of children have built a snow fort, their mittens stiff with cold, their laughter ringing bright and thin through the air. Each time the wind picks up, they duck behind their snow walls and shriek with delight, then emerge again, triumphant and breathless. Their joy fills the quiet gaps between footsteps and bells. A woman in a dark shawl sweeps her porch, her broom scratching softly against the boards. The sound carries down the street in even strokes. She pauses now and then to rest her hands and look toward the horizon, where the sunlight has begun to stain the snow pink and gold. Her expression is calm, almost prayerful. At the blacksmith's shop, the hammer still rings, but slower now, like a clock nearing the end of its day. Each strike echoes farther in the thinning air, bouncing between walls before fading into silence. The man wipes his brow and steps outside, his face red from heat, his breath turning instantly white. He leans against the doorway and watches the sun slide lower, its reflection caught in the ice around his boots. A few people pass, a mother and her son carrying a bundle of firewood, an old couple walking arm in arm, their boots crunching in rhythm. They nod to one another, exchange a few soft words and move on. The town feels smaller now, as though the day's light is folding everything closer together. The church bell tolls faintly in the distance, not a call this time, just a reminder that time still flows even when no one is counting. The sound drifts through the air and fades like a sigh. In the square, the snow glows golden now, the footprints from morning softened into faint impressions. The frozen fountain catches the light, its icicles shining like glass threads. The candle that sat at its base all night still remains, a small shadow in the snow, its wick buried now beneath a thin crust of ice. The baker steps outside his shop, wiping flour from his hands, and takes a moment to watch the sky. His wife joins him, slipping her arm through his. They stand quietly, not speaking, just watching the color change, the world shifting from gold to amber, from amber to rose, from rose to violet. It happens slowly, beautifully, as though the day itself refuses to let go. The wind picks up again, carrying with it the faint scent of pine and smoke from the hearths. Somewhere, a door closes. Somewhere else, a window opens just enough for laughter to drift out, light and fleeting. The sun slips lower still, touching the steeple, the rooftops, the snow-dusted trees. Shadows lengthen, stretching like ink across the streets. Every surface glows for one last moment. Every pane of glass, every flake of frost, every thread of hair caught in the light, before the world exhales into evening. No one hurries now. The day moves on at its own pace, quiet and certain, like the turning of a page, and as the last of the light slips beneath the hills, you can feel the town preparing, not for sleep yet, but for another kind of stillness, the warm, candlelit calm that always follows winter afternoons. Evening returns like an old friend. The last line of sunlight fades from the rooftops, and the snow turns from gold to silver. Lamps flicker on one by one, their glow spilling into the streets like pools of honey. Smoke drifts upward from every chimney, steady and straight in the windless air. Inside the houses, life gathers close again. Tables are set, chairs pulled near the stoves, dishes passed from hand to hand. The sounds are gentle, the soft clink of spoons, a chair sliding over wood, quiet laughter that rises and falls like music. Outside, the snow muffles every echo, wrapping the town in a blanket of calm. The grandmother's rocker moves in slow rhythm by the fire, her needles glinting in the light. The children lean against their mother, eyelids heavy, the warmth of the room pressing them toward dreams. The father sits nearby, mending a broken toy with careful fingers, pausing now and then to listen to the wind. Beyond the windows, the world is still. The stars have returned, scattered bright and cold across the sky, their reflections trembling faintly in the frozen fountain. Somewhere a dog barks once, then curls back into sleep. The snow whispers along the eaves, sliding softly down to join the drifts below. The lamplight dims, the fire sighs, and the room grows quieter still. No one speaks now. There is nothing left to say. The warmth, the peace, the simple nearness of one another, it is enough. And as the night deepens, the town breathes with them, slow, steady, at peace beneath the wide winter sky. The same stars that watched the storm now keep their silent vigil over roofs and fields and hearts. Inside, the candles burn lower, the last flames tracing golden halos on the walls. The grandmother sets her knitting aside. The father closes his eyes. The mother smooths the children's hair. The house falls into that gentle rhythm where time seems to stop. Only the fire crackling softly, only the snow falling endlessly outside. It is Christmas still, though no one speaks the word. Just warmth and light and rest. A quiet world breathing in unison, waiting for another dawn. And in that silence, in that soft, endless hush, the story lingers like a candle that never truly goes out.